Hello, my name is Ann Leverance. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was watching on CNN about a young lady who was raped by an individual, and nobody seemed to believe her. And I'm finding myself in the same boat. So I'm coming to you to bring my story. Back in September of 2004, I went down to Clearwater Beach, Florida, to my favorite place called Shepard's Beach Resort. I love to go down there and dance. It's one of my favorite places in all of Florida, and been doing it for 20 years. Used to be the bank, now it's Shepard's. We danced through the night, and I had noticed this man looking at me across the room, and he kept staring at me. I thought he was admiring me. But later I then found he was stalking me, and I'll tell you my story. Well, the bar was closing that evening, and I was talking to the band members, and telling them how wonderful they were. When I turned around, that man was there. I don't know why he was there or what he wanted, but then the bouncer had walked on over, and I had told the bouncer to keep this man away from me, words I will not use on this camera today. I walked outside, turning the corner. I noticed that he was detaining this man, and I had met some people outside, and we were talking about going to an after-hours party, and they were giving me an address. I received that address, and I soon walked up into the parking garage. My brother and his girlfriend had walked ahead of me. Before I knew it, there was a car pulling in, which I turned around and noticed it was a truck. The truck pulled behind my vehicle as I was letting my brother's friend Lori into the vehicle. She got into the right-hand passenger side. I turned around. This man was out of the vehicle, and he was hugging my brother. I went over to my brother to gather him up to get him in the vehicle so that we could leave. And in the process of that, when I grabbed my brother, this man came across and struck me in the head with a bottle of beer, which put me into darkness. I saw black. A few seconds had passed and I still couldn't see. I was attacked by punches to the face. I was being beaten by this man. He was then grabbed by my brother. Then I had walked back a little bit, gathered my composure. I looked down, and my jewelry was all over the ground. Maybe that's what he was after. And then I bent down to pick it up. My brother had him in a hold. And as I went to bend down to pick it up, this man broke away from my brother and began attacking me for the third time. He was pounding on the back of my head with his fists with full force, knocking me to the ground, and then he began to kick me. And then my brother grabbed him and put him up against the wall. Then I heard, "Hey, stop what you're doing," and the bouncers came forward, and they grabbed that man, and they held him, and I was pleading for them to call the police. And in the process of that, I guess I said it too many times, the bouncer looked at me, his eyes widened, and then his hands went up in the air, and he said, "Oh, well." He let this man get into his vehicle. He then put it into reverse and backed out so quickly, we all thought that he was going to go right through the doors of the Shepard's Beach Resort, and he fled the scene. The ambulance came, they called the police came, they took my information, and in taking my information, I told them what had happened, as I have explained to you. The ambulance wanted to take me away, but at that point, I was so confused. I guess I was in shock. I had been beaten so severely from this man. But I was a high and I was a low. And in being questioned by the officers, I did that to the best of my ability with blurred vision and uneasiness. They wanted to take me to the hospital that evening, but I felt I didn't need that at that time. What I really wanted was to have a cigarette. What a shame. But that was what would calm me. So in the process of that, the ambulance left. And in the process of sitting down by the Shepard's doorway, I noticed the policeman and the bouncer talking. It seemed like a half an hour, but I'm sure it was only like 5 or 10 minutes. And then they separated. And then I received a phone call from my roommate convincing me to try to go to the hospital. So I agreed to that, and in agreeing to that, the ambulance came back again. Well, again, I didn't have a cigarette. I was in shock. I didn't know if I was coming or going. There was blood everywhere. It was all over me. And at this point, I think that the police officer was unwilling to deal with me because I guess I was very irrational. Then off they went. 2.5 weeks later, I received the police report. They did find that man. Another police report manifested from that, which is about several pages long, and manifested from that was also other witnesses. I had talked to the detectives about this. I had also found out that he was a sexual predator. So maybe it wasn't just my jewelry it was after. Maybe he sexually wanted to abuse me. And then 3 witnesses manifested on behalf of him. If I recall, he was dancing with one woman who had turned to dance with me. Maybe that's what upset him, I'm not quite sure. But I received the police report 2.5 weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, and what I read brought me to total surprise and tears. For what was left out of there, the bouncer was not even in the police report. They did not go back and question the maintenance man who saw this man beating me. And as my attacker says, 4 of us pulled him out of the vehicle, and they didn't even question the maintenance man to see how many people were beating him to credit or discredit this man. And what it really comes down to is that, from speaking to several lawyers, is that the police department must have had something against me. I had an advocate. I told the advocate that I didn't hate the man, but I hated what he did to me. And the next morning I received information from the DA that said that we will not be pressing any charges, that we find this to be combative. My injuries are severe. I have been on my back in a dark room for 2.5 years. I have left hand imbalance impaired. I am also severely hurt with my spinal cord. Every time I raise my hands or do any lifting over 5 pounds, I experience severe migraines. The migraines, they can last anywhere from a minute to 2 hours to all day, and that's been going on in my life for 3.5 years. I have been unable to work. I have gained 100 pounds, and I've actually had no life. I don't know where my 40s are or going to. Excuse me for being emotional. But it's taken my life away, and nobody seems to care. And I thought maybe speaking with you, somebody out there will hear my words. So at this point, I'm sitting on about $70,000 in medical bills, and I'm still not completed or have solved all my injuries, and I'm sure the price will continue to rise, and nobody seems to care. I don't know how many other people have been hurt in there, nor do the tycoons of Shepard's care. They must have some pretty good lawyers, because all the lawyers I've spoken to have been frightened of them. And here I stand alone, waiting for somebody to listen to my words and send me some help.